You don't usually hear much about the naval battles of the Civil War. Most of the major battles were fought on land, and the war at sea is just kinda pushed off to the side. It's still pretty cool though, so here we go. Let's start with the Union's Anaconda Plan. Proposed by Winfield Scott, the plan called for a bunch of warships to line up and block all Confederate ships from leaving southern ports. This blockade would cut off the South's trade, therefore eliminating the Confederacy's source of money and supplies. Great job, Scott. Nice plan. I mean, a lot of people didn't like the plan because they thought Scott was playing it too safe. But President Lincoln thought it was a good idea. Unfortunately, it wasn't as easy as it sounded. Obviously, the Confederates weren't just going to sit back and let the blockade happen. The Confederacy used ships called blockade runners, which were mostly manned by random groups of sailors on their various boats. These ships would try to bypass the blockade to do some sneak trading. Under cover of darkness, blockade runners would slip by the Union's ships and sail off to get goods back to the South. Though these little excursions didn't always go as planned, there was about an 80% success rate, which is pretty good. In early 1862, the second part of the Union's Anaconda Plan was put into action. The Union Navy was to split the Confederacy along the Mississippi River, so Ulysses S. Grant got one fleet of gunboats, which he took from Illinois down the Mississippi, taking down any forts in his path. Another fleet went to David G. Farragut and captured New Orleans, then continued up the Mississippi, also capturing any forts in the way. The two fleets eventually met up and cut everything west of the river off from the rest of the Confederacy. Since they didn't have a navy, the Confederates had to build their new ships to be strong and tough to stand up to the Union's navy. So they took a steamship and stuck some armor on it, naming it the Virginia. This ironclad warship could withstand more attacks and was used both at sea and to fire on land troops. At this time, most of the Union warships were still wooden, so the Virginia was a huge advantage for the Confederacy. The Union wasn't about to let the Confederacy one-up them, though. A Union engineer created an ironclad design of his own, the Monitor. This ironclad was a tin can on a raft, mostly underwater with only a platform and guns appearing on deck. The entire thing was protected by 8 solid inches of iron and was the world's first rotating turret for guns. These ironclads later became the inspiration for modern-day warships. 1863. The Union Navy decided to start attacking a bunch of port cities. First, they tried to attack Charleston, South Carolina, which was kind of a terrible idea. The Confederates in Charleston had 2 years' worth of preparation. They had positioned guns, set mines underwater, and placed random obstructions in the water to make it harder for ships to sail in. The Union attack failed. After the defeat at Charleston, the Union attacked Wilmington, North Carolina, a very important Confederate port city, being the main port for trade in the Atlantic. The Union assembled its biggest fleet ever and attacked Fort Fisher, the key to Wilmington's defense. Wilmington's fall deprived Robert E. Lee's army in Virginia of a major supply source. The Confederates tried to strike back by getting some commerce raiders from Europe. The commerce raiders ambushed Union merchant ships to disrupt trading. These did a pretty fair job. For example, Raphael Semmes, captain of the commerce raider Alabama, was insanely good at what he did. In 21 months, the Alabama destroyed over 60 Union ships before finally being gunned down by the Kearsarge. Alright, you've learned about the navies of the Civil War. So now, do you think the naval fighting in the war had much impact on the outcome, and why or why not?